Hi, this is Dr. Lise Deguire, and you're listening to Awakened Nation with Brad Solis.
A huge shift is taking place on planet Earth. People seem to be waking up. Tired of the way things used to be, they are creating something brand new and changing the world we live in. My name is Brad Solis, and I get to sit down with the next generation of idea makers, the disruptors, and the game changers. Everyday people, just like you and me, from all over, who are doing amazing things. Welcome to Awakened Nation.
Dr. Lise, I'm so glad to have you on the show. You get rave reviews from Lisa Gage, a good friend of mine.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, and for those of you tuning in right now, we're going to be going down that road of a lot of times people become a therapist because they've had a lot of trauma in their own life and they want to heal others, but they haven't healed themselves. Am I correct?
True enough. Although hopefully the better ones have.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I always believe that a coach should also have a coach that's at another level, and
Exactly.
therapists should be working on their stuff.
Because people are people.
Oh, yeah. And we're going to have some fun today because we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive into your own story because I find what you're doing fascinating. Anything in the healing modalities, I just love all of this because we're in a new age. I don't know if you know that, where people are really more accepting of these things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let me read your bio.
Okay.
Dr. Lise Deguire is a clinical psychologist in private practice. She grew up all over New Jersey and Long Island, the lone surviving child of unsettled and iconoclastic parents. After the fire, she spent most of her childhood in the hospital, undergoing countless surgical procedures. Dr. Deguire attended Tufts University, graduating in 1985, summa cum laude, Phi Beta Kappa. She earned her doctorate in clinical psychology from Hahnemann Widener University in 1990. She wrote and published her doctoral dissertation entitled The Wounded Healer, The Wounded Therapist, Ancient Beliefs and Modern Issues Concerning the Ill or Disabled Psychotherapist. She has worked as a psychologist at St. Lawrence Rehabilitation Center, McGee Rehabilitation Center, and Hunterdon Medical Center. For the past 14 years, she had a successful solo practice in Pennington, New Jersey. In addition to her private practice, she is a dynamic, engaging speaker. She has appeared on television, on the radio, and has been published in the Trenton Times, grownandflown.com, and medium.com. And you've been waiting 50 years to write your story, and we're going to talk more about this. You waited your entire, till your first family died, 4 by suicide and 1 by AIDS, so as to not cause distress or embarrassment. And now, a sole survivor, you've completed this memoir within a year, writing at a furious clip. Let's talk about that. Flashback Girl wrote itself.
More or less, yes.
So let's talk about that. Your life's been extraordinary.
Yes. And I'm not even sure where you want me to begin, Brad.
Well, let's start with the fire. You said there was a fire at the beginning. What happened?
I was in a very serious fire when I was 4 years old. My family and I were on vacation in New Hampshire. And the first night there, my mother wanted to cook us dinner and decided to start a barbecue. We were on the front porch of a rented cabin. And the front porch had one entrance out leading to the very beautiful Lake Winnipesaukee in New Hampshire. And the front porch had a fence surrounding it. So my mother decided to start this barbecue. She was standing on one side of the porch. I was standing right next to her. And my father and my brother were on the other side of the porch. My mother got out this fluid that she, I guess, thought was lighter fluid. And she poured it onto some charcoal briskets and went to light it. And it didn't light, although a very tiny little flame apparently did light. And then she took this can of, again, this thing she thought was lighter fluid, but really turned out to be household solvent, poured it back onto the charcoal, and it exploded in a giant wish of flame all over my mother and myself. My mother took one look at the situation and realized that the only way out was to run through the fire to get to the lake. And that's what she did. And she left me there. So I was trapped behind these flames, trapped against the fence. And my father realized where I was. He hopped over the fence, ran around, was just able to reach me. Thank God he was a tall man, and thank God the fence had big enough holes and I was small. He grabbed me through the fence, rolled me in the pine needles. That didn't work. Carried me down to the lake, I'm still aflame, and shouted to my mother, take her, take her. My mother said, I can't. My father said, you have to take her. He threw me into the lake. She caught me because I couldn't swim, and I lived. So my mother was burned 35%. I was burned 65%.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The One Soul ambulance of Wolfboro, New Hampshire came to our rescue and took my mother. And my father put me in his car and drove me to the hospital himself, assuming I would die. Everybody thought I was going to die because, listen, so it's really bad to be burned 65% third degree. Like, that's really bad even now.
Right.
But in 1967, that was just a death sentence, especially when we're little.
Yeah.
It was an absolute miracle that I'm here. I happened to be taken, both my mother and I were transferred to the best burn hospital in the country, Massachusetts General, and they saved our lives.
That's an incredible story. Now, how you had a lot of surgeries and you had a lot of things that had to take place, or?
Many, many, many surgeries.
Right.
After the fire, I had no bottom lip, I had no chin, I had no neck, and my arms were fused to my body. I looked, pretty monstrous, honestly. But I had this brilliant surgeon, Dr. John Constable, to whom I owe my life. And he painstakingly built me from the ground up. I've had, I think, honestly, I don't know how many surgeries I've had because nobody bothered to count. It's been, I'm going to say at least 60.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the same time, my mother was in the hospital. She was not burned nearly as badly as I was, but she was there. And she was neglectful. We were in the same hospital. She didn't come visit me for about, 3 or 4 weeks, I guess. During the time I almost died. She just didn't come.
What did you learn from that? Because that's kind of that. And those of you who are listening, you have to realize this was a different era. My dad was kind of rough. He's the first generation born in America from Hungary, and so his attitude was, "I'm not here to coddle you. I'm here to prepare you for life." And sometimes that could look cold. That could look a certain way. So I want everybody to understand this sounds cruel, but it was almost the way back then. I hate to say it, but let's continue. What did you learn from that?
I think what I learned from that is that, and I'm pausing to say this the right way.
That's fine. Yeah, take your time.
There are all kinds of people in the universe, and just because somebody's your mother doesn't mean that she will be there for you. But it also doesn't mean that other people won't be there for you. As I said, I had this amazing surgeon who took the best care of me, not only physically, but mentally too. I had nurses who were there for me. I had other people who came to my aid and rescue. And I think that's one of the things that I have taken from my life is sometimes the people you think are going to be there for you are not, and they can't be. Or they won't be, or whatever. But look around, there are other people in this universe who can come through for you, sometimes in the most meaningful and loving of ways.
It is. It's astounding. Yeah. And you never know where to expect it from, but I'm sure you greatly appreciate it when it does happen.
Yes. Yeah.
Amazing. So what made you become a psychologist? I know I'm leaping ahead here, but you've gone through surgeries, you've gone through all this, and then you tried to settle back down into sort of a normal life.
Yeah.
So what made the transition?
Well, first of all, I didn't always know I wanted to be a psychologist. I wanted to be a pediatrician. I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be an actress. I wanted to be all kinds of things, right?
Right.
Um, but I think I have always been driven to understand why people are the way they are, why some people make it and some people don't. I myself, I think, if you were to have looked at me at the age of 4 or 5, you would have thought, that girl, nothing good is ever going to happen to her. And yet, I built myself a really lovely life. And on the other hand, my brother, my only brother, who, if you were to look at when he was small, you would have said, oh my God, he's a genius. And he was. He's amazing. And he was. My brother took his own life when he was 19.
Oh.
So he's gone, and I can talk about that some more, but he's gone. I'm here. What's that?
Yeah.
Right? So that's what I think I have always wanted to understand about human nature. How come some of us go through these terrible things, rise above our circumstances, and build amazing lives? And how come some people falter? And how can we help those people? How can we help those people?
I've always been astounded by that juxtaposition that goes on in someone's mind. I've met people who were model material and thought they were ugly because someone throughout their whole life told them they were ugly. My mother told me I was fat all the time, and I look at pictures of myself, I had 6-pack abs. Where did you get this delusion? I had to let that go at some point.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that going around. It's sort of a dysmorphia that's taking place where what the person sees in the mirror is not what's going on inside their head. There really is a huge disconnect. How do you help people with that?
Well, I am not an expert in body dysmorphia, so I'm gonna put that question to the side because I never like to give answers that I don't know to be true.
Spoken like a true PhD.
Right. But what I do know is that many, many people suffer from extremely negative messages in their own head, as I think you're saying, Brad. Messages that they are now saying to themselves, sometimes more or less constantly, that they don't matter, they don't belong, they're not good enough, what's wrong with them. And understanding those messages and ferreting them out and replacing them with good stuff, I think is the work of psychotherapy.
I can't say enough about that. I mean, that is, I hate to say it, God's work on some level, because I'm always saddened by people, and I see it in my own work. I coach people and individuals for business, and I can see they don't believe in themselves.
Right.
They don't believe that they can do certain things. They just don't believe it. So I can only imagine the type of people you work with in the psychology realm that are just destructive against their own selves just for the sake of being destructive.
Well,
it's got to be rough.
Let me just say, it's not just for the sake of being destructive, right? They're following an old script. They may not even know they're following it, but they are. Wow. They're following a script in their head that says they're not worth it, no one's going to love them, they don't matter. So it might seem nonsensical, but if you know the story, it's based on something, right?
It is.
Sense? Yeah.
It makes total sense.
Okay.
Well, let's talk about this. Your whole first family died off before you could write this book. Let's talk about this. This is hysterical, because I know some people, they're waiting to write the great novel until mom and dad are gone. But talk about this. This is astounding.
Yeah. So my book talks a fair amount about what it's like to be, a little girl who is being overlooked, not seen, to some degree, mistreated, never intentionally, but just the same, mistreated, and what I went through. And I was not about to put any of that out while my parents were alive.
Right.
First of all, I just not interested in causing anybody pain. Second of all, they couldn't have tolerated it. They weren't people that could have tolerated that.
Right.
So, as I mentioned, my brother died when I was 14. I have not a single negative word to say about him. He was a hero to me. But he was gone. That left me, my father, and my mother. My parents divorced. My mother remarried to a man who had 3 stepdaughters, one of whom lived with me, who felt truly to be my sister. And that woman, Jackie Diaz, took her life when she was in college.
Wow.
My dear father came out in his 60s after his mother died, and promptly contracted AIDS and died in 1996.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to just complete the story, and then we can go back to any people that you want to. My stepfather took his life, I don't know how many years ago now, maybe about 8. And my mother engaged in assisted suicide. She went to Switzerland and took her life.
Wow.
So that's the family that I started with.
That's incredible that you are truly a survivor.
Right.
I mean, and this is a testament to the strength that's in you.
Yes. And it's a testament to the capacity for human resilience, which is a topic of study of mine.
Yeah.
And it's also a testament to the fact that I have been deeply loved by many people. Not necessarily the people I thought. Other people.
Isn't that true?
Yeah.
That's powerful. So after they all passed, you started writing Flashback Girl. You said it just wrote itself like overnight.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously not quite, but it felt that way because I was up first thing in the morning, last thing at night. I was writing every single day. And I think that's because I had kept all this in for so long. Everything that happened, how I felt about it. Again, in protection of some of the people involved. And it was just such a relief to be able to say, like, this is what happened. Because also I will say, both my parents were pretty self-involved people, and not inclined to be honest about things they did or didn't do, if I'm making sense.
Oh, you make total sense. There's a whole generation of that.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
If the fire had taken place later in life, do you think you would have survived differently? Or maybe handled it differently?
I think it's possible that the fire had to happen exactly when it happened in order to get me into a universe of different people. Because as I mentioned, both my parents really were very limited. God bless them. I love them. Very limited people. And I'm not sure that I would have grown up to be as understanding or kind or giving or warm had I spent all my formative years with them.
Right.
Yeah, I wasn't with them. I was in the hospital most of the time. And I was around a whole lot of other people. And I think that might, honestly, in some weird way, have wound up being good for me.
Yeah. Timing. It's all perfectly in order, perfectly the way it should be, everything.
Mm-hmm.
What I love about your work is you, and I've been exposed to some therapists who they really hadn't healed themselves. They just want to be a healer, and sometimes they give really dysfunctional advice based on their own dysfunction. And you covered that in your thesis, which I thought was incredible. The Wounded Healer, the Wounded Therapist. ancient beliefs, and modern issues concerning the ill or disabled psychotherapist. Let's talk about that, because I think that is what your industry, every industry is suffering from, is people who haven't healed their old wounds.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow, if I knew I was going to be talking about my dissertation, I would have read it. It's been a long time, Brad.
But I love this part of what you do. This is incredible.
I hear
You call it the way you see it, as they say.
Yes. Well, so basically, if I remember it right, and really this was a very long time ago now, there have always been, I mean, in really ancient cultures, shamans, you know the term shaman, that those were the healers back in the day. Yes. And so a lot of shamans themselves were hurt or ill in some way. And so there's been this belief that once you have been injured in some way, that you may then grow on to become a healer yourself. May, right? Mm-hmm.
Right. Mm-hmm. I get that.
Yeah. that it can endow some sort of power. I don't like the word power, but powers.
Well, it's like the ancient. The Japanese they fix a cracked and broken bowl with gold.
Yes. Yes.
So that you see the cracks and they are beautified.
Yes.
And they there's an old saying where this monk used to walk down the hill to get water every day, and he had a big stick, and on each one he balanced water jugs, big water jugs. And one of them was cracked and would leak the whole way up the hill. Mm-hmm. And so after years of this, the one jug just said to the master, please, I am not worthy. I'm cracked. I'm broken everywhere inside, and I'm leaking everywhere. Why do you take me every morning? Because I don't help in any way, shape, or form. He goes, follow me. And he started walking back up the hill, and he say, you see the beautiful flowers here on the right side of the path?
Oh.
You water them every single day for me.
Oh, wow. I love that.
So I think our broken parts, we're entering into a time period where I truly believe people are getting the help they need. Mm. And they're scared. They truly are, because this doesn't feel, it doesn't feel good sometimes to let it go. But when you cross that wonderful chasm into being a little more healthier, I think that's the driving force. You want to get healthy. You want to stop lashing out at your spouse. You want to feel happier, content, and dealing with some of the things that you went through. Mm-hmm. And I think you were incredibly blessed with parents that, for lack of a better word, might be a little cold sometimes. Your dad seemed to be very loving, and your mom seemed to be a little cold. Yeah. So when you don't expect something from someone, you learn to really compensate on your own and love yourself a little more for that. Mm-hmm. And I learned this, and I'm sure you did too. They did the very best they could. Mm-hmm. And I can't, fault them for not doing what they couldn't.
But people have what they have, and they are who they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
So tell us about Flashback Girl. I want to hear the details on this. This sounds like a fun book. Fun title.
Goodness. So, I'm glad you like the title. So, Flashback Girl, it turns out, and I didn't really know this, that the lawyer who represented me after this fire went on and used my case when he presented in front of the United States Senate. In 1971, he was part of the hearings that led to the development of the Consumer Protection Act, which has basically made products safe for Americans for the last, 50 years. And it's been a huge, huge deal.
Right.
And he presented my case as part of that law. So, in fact, my picture, my little 4-year-old burned, incredibly sad picture, was presented in front of the United States Senate. So when I found this out, I called him, my lawyer, but unfortunately he passed away. Spoke to my lawyer's brother, And when we got on the phone and I said who I was, he said, "Are you the Flashback Girl?" I'm like, yeah, that's me. So
They were following you.
that's the title. The book itself, I'm still working on getting it out there. It's in its final push. I have my plan is to get it out in the beginning of 2020, but it's just about all ready to go. And then as part of the book, I wound up doing a lot of writing and speaking. That was not my plan. My plan was to write this memoir and get that out. But it turns out that it was a lot more complicated than I thought it was going to be. And people were like, well, you need to start to speak. You need to write a blog. You need to do all these things in order to make a name for myself, you know?
Right.
I started to do those things, and it turns out I like those things very much. So now I write a weekly blog about topics on psychological resilience. Some of them are deeply, deeply personal. Some of them are about, you know, things that are happening in my practice. I mean, I obscure everybody's identity, but that kind of thing. Some of them are more topical, like, you know, holidays, Mother's Day, stuff like that.
Right.
So anyway, that is something that I'm doing. And then I'm speaking kind of honestly now all over the country, which has been really cool. I spoke at the World Burn Congress last year. I'm speaking at the North American Burn Society next year. I'm all over, which has been really exciting. And it turns out I really love to speak. So, you know, you just never know where the universe is going to take you.
Ain't that the truth? I bet you're really good on stage.
Well, that's, remember I told you I used to want to be an actress?
Yes.
Come in handy.
It does. You know, I was a stand-up comedian for 8 years.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a long story, but I went from the C-level as a C-level executive of a publicly traded company to stand-up comedy because I was burnt out, basically. Okay. And all that acting training, it helps immensely when you begin speaking, because you will become what's called unfollowable because people won't be able to follow you.
Right. And people, you know, if you're comfortable on stage and you know how to project and you know how to draw people in, I mean, that doesn't hurt, right?
Not at all. Yeah. So I'm guessing you're something else on stage.
I thank you. I hope you are right. I think you might be.
How do people get a hold of you if they want to book a session, get to know you, or book you as a speaker?
Okay. So there's so many ways, and I don't know how to say them all without rambling on in a boring way.
Ramble away.
Okay. Well, first of all, I am handled by my friend and colleague Lisa Gage at Hue Entertainment, and that's spelled HUE entertainment.com. She books my speaking engagements.
Nice.
And you can find me online. I have a website, an author website, which is my name, Lise Deguire, LISEDEGUIRE.com. And from there, you can click into my weekly blog and have it sent to you. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, I'm LinkedIn. I'm doing it all, Brad.
There you go.
I didn't think any of this 2 years ago, but I'm doing it all now.
I love it. Reach out to Dr. Lise Deguire, lisedeguire.com, and you know, get into her work, drink it up. It's a lot of fun. It's honest. It's needed at this time. And I can't wait till Flashback Girl gets out. Please let us know when it's going to go live, because
I would love to.
I want to promote it in our group and on the show, and we'll have you back on again after it goes live.
Thank you.
Now, in this part of the show, I ask in the lightning round some questions for you so that our people can get to know you a little bit better. Are you ready?
Yeah. What if can I pass if there's something I'm not comfortable with?
Absolutely. I'm not going to. Okay. First question. What is something about you that most people don't know about you?
I sang for the Pope once.
That's fantastic.
It wasn't just me. I need to be clear. I was part of a chorus.
Yeah, but still.
I stood up in the Vatican and I sang for the Pope. So
that's awesome.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Ta-da, boom, boom. It's like, I walked on the moon and I sang for the Pope. It's like, what? You would never know that. That's awesome. Second question. What's your favorite memory?
So I can tell you my favorite memory. I won't be able to tell you without crying.
That's fine.
Okay. So it's going to sound like it was my worst memory, but it was my worst and my best memory, maybe combined. When I was in 7th grade, I was horribly, horribly bullied. And there came a day that I was sent this awful, incredibly rejecting note by these girls, a group of girls that used to be my very good friends, but they had turned on me.
Right.
And that happens in 7th grade.
Right.
Right? Okay. So I took this note and I ran home and I ran upstairs and my brother was there. And I mentioned to you, my brother was my hero. He was 5 years older than me. So I'm like 13, he's 18. And I ran upstairs, I'm calling him, Mark. And I showed him the letter and he read this letter and he stood there on the staircase and he just wrapped his arms around me and he held me back and forth. And he just said, oh. And he held me like that for the longest time.
Wow.
And I have never felt so comforted as I did in that moment. I'm sorry to cry.
Well, I'm crying too.
Very precious to me, because he's gone. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a great man right there.
He was. Yeah. So I don't think you thought that question would make me cry.
I want to thank you for sharing that, because that's a testament to your brother, and it's a testament that you did have so much support from him.
Yes.
And the world is cruel. They don't teach people how not to be cruel. That's powerful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yes. And my last question is, when you pass from this earth, what do you want to be known for?
Mm-hmm. Wow. I hope to be known as a person who was really there for people, who was loving and reliable and sturdy for the people who needed me.
Wow. Thank you. Dr. Lise Deguire, man, thank you. This has been a powerful show. Thank you. I appreciate it.
It's so good to meet you.
You bet. Tune in next week, everybody, for another great episode of Awakened Nation. Thank you, Dr. Lise, for being on. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you so much for being a big part of the Awakened Nation movement. This is how you can help me and our extraordinary guests. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please share it out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And let's grow this movement by word of mouth. Our success will be because of you. Thank you, and see you next week.